After the divorce from my wife, we still live together. None of our friends can understand it. I was clearly already fed up with her, sloppy, always looking miserable. So why insist on divorcing but not moving out? Of course, I've thought it through. Divorce and move out? It'd be hard on the kid and on me. What's the point? It's been 2 months since the divorce, and my life is still running smoothly. Every morning, a hot breakfast is always waiting on the table. My son finishes his meal, grabs his backpack, and before heading out, he says loudly, "Dad, I'm off to school." And Guanqin, my ex-wife, after dropping our son off at school, comes back and cleans the whole house spotless. If I had to say what's different, it's probably that I don't have to face Guanqin's barrel-like figure anymore. Her bloated body disgusts me, and I don't have to grit my teeth and spend a few minutes in bed just to get it over with quickly. She wasn't satisfied, and I felt humiliated. Now, free from the shackles of marriage, I feel like a huge weight has been lifted. I feel younger, too. I've even loosened up at business dinners. The hostess is the client's order. I can hold them as long as I want. Those days of getting sudden checkup calls and being rushed home feel like a lifetime ago. Honestly, these past 2 months have been amazing. When I was having dinner with some friends, they heard Guanqin and I got divorced, but still live together. They looked completely shocked. "Jian, then what did you get divorced for?" "Oh, I get it. Jian just can't bear to part with his wife. I mean, it makes sense. After all these years of feelings, you couldn't really split up, could you?" As they talked, they raised their glasses to me. They exchanged a glance, then asked with a smile, "I bet it was your wife who backed down again, wasn't it?" Over the years, Guanqin brought up divorce countless times, crying, complaining, even throwing fits. Every time I drove her to the Civil Affairs Bureau, she'd back down and apologize. From after our son was born, until now, she's been doing this for 7 years. At first, I thought it was just after childbirth. The doctor said, "It's normal for new mothers to have mood swings." I figured it couldn't be postpartum depression, right? Even if it was postpartum depression, it shouldn't last until our son started elementary school. My friend's words made me snort. Feelings? What feelings? We're in our 30s. You think we're still reckless kids? This time, the divorce was actually initiated by Guanqin. After our son fell asleep one night, she suddenly threw the divorce papers in front of me. "Jian Yonglian, let's get divorced." This agreement has been in the nightstand drawer for who knows how long, 3 or 5 years. Every time she brings up divorce, she takes it out. I don't know what set her off this time. I just casually said, "If you've made up your mind, then let's do it." The next morning, right after our son left for school with his backpack, she turned around and reminded me, "See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau later." I was stunned. I almost dropped the steamed bun in my hand. It wasn't until we got to the Civil Affairs Bureau that I realized Guanqin had already revised the divorce agreement. "My demands aren't many. Split the assets 50-50. I don't want the company. You give me cash. Our son can go with either you or me. The apartment we live in now is in a good school district. If our son goes with you, it's yours." For the first time, I saw on Guanqin's face a determination about the divorce. Guanqin said our son would go with her. She wouldn't change his last name either, so I didn't fight for custody. There's a 1-month cooling off period. I was on edge for that entire month, afraid Guanqin would change her mind. These past few years, if not a living hell, have felt suffocating enough. I still can't figure out what made Guanqin become like this. As for this divorced but living together arrangement, to be precise, it was my parents' idea. When they heard Guanqin and I were divorcing, they booked flights immediately and rushed back from Sanya. They didn't know Guanqin and I already had our divorce certificates in hand. My mom pulled me into the kitchen, wiping her tears. She said, "I don't care if you get divorced, but you can't just give my grandson to Xiaoqin. No matter what you say today, I won't let her take Xiaoyu away." After I showed her the divorce certificate, my mom made an even bigger scene. That night, I stayed at home. Guanqin cleaned out the guest room that's always been empty for me to stay in for the night. In the following days, my parents started taking turns trying to convince Guanqin and me to change our minds. "Can't you just stay together after the divorce? Think of it as having a live-in housekeeper for free. Don't you need someone to take care of things around the house?" I started to listen. I really don't like having outsiders in the house. The reason I didn't fight for our son is because Guanqin is genuinely better at raising him. From his birth until now, starting school, it's mostly been Guanqin handling everything. I just provided the money. Last year, at our son's kindergarten graduation, Guanqin asked me to go to the ceremony with her. On the way there, Guanqin kept talking to me about the parent committee interviews for elementary school. I couldn't focus. I was annoyed to death. Compared to me hiring a nanny later, it's better to let Guanqin take care of our son. My mom said she could take care of him too. I asked her what a parent committee was. Then she hemmed and hawed and finally backed down. But my mom was right about one thing. Divorce and splitting up would hurt our son. As for why Guanqin agreed to it, to be honest, I don't get it either. Just like I don't get why she suddenly changed and became so unreasonable in my eyes. A friend's comment made me see the light. Maybe Guanqin regrets it, but since we already got the divorce certificate, she had to swallow her pride. Guanqin suddenly asked me for money. It made me feel really uncomfortable. She stopped me on her way back from dropping our son off at school. I was just about to head out. She stopped me and said she needed to talk. Ever since we got the divorce certificate, Guanqin and I barely spoke, except in front of our son. We'd exchange a few words occasionally. It was just like my mom said, like an employer and a live-in nanny. She cooked and did laundry, I watched TV and scrolled on my phone, so when she suddenly said she needed to talk, it really threw me off. I didn't expect Guanqin to lay out a bill for me. She said based on current rates for live-in nannies, it's around $10,000 a month. Even part-time help would cost at least $8,000. The apartment we're living in now was already given to her in the agreement. The title's been transferred, so now I have to pay rent to live at home, and pay for my meals too. Honestly, she could have just asked me for money directly. For our son's sake, how could I refuse? But this whole calculation thing makes me sick to my stomach. I didn't argue with her. Before leaving with my car keys, I transferred $90,000 to her account. I specifically noted it as salary, rent, and food expenses. For several days in a row, I stayed elsewhere. Actually, in the first 2 months after the divorce, I often didn't go home either, but the feeling was completely different. I called a friend out for drinks. Only when we met did I find out his wife was recently threatening to divorce him. I was about to comfort him, but he just shook his head indifferently. It's fine. The bigger the fuss, the less she actually wants to leave. It's true. Guanqin made a scene for so many years, but the last time, she quietly went through with the divorce. I rubbed my face. So why is your wife making a fuss? Did you do something? What else could it be? She wanted to check my phone, and I wouldn't let her. Bro, did your ex-wife ever check your phone? I paused for a moment. My mind was blank. I couldn't recall a single instance like that. No, she didn't. I opened my mouth, growing more hesitant as I spoke. It wasn't that I suspected Guanqin of checking my phone, but what my friend said. There's nothing to find anyway. I wouldn't cheat. That sentence sent a sudden chill down my spine. The year Guanqin was pregnant, my first love, Yuqing, suddenly added me on WeChat. She was back in our hometown. Life wasn't going well for her. I heard she went through a lot of people before she could track me down. I transferred her tens of thousands. She insisted on coming from our hometown to thank me in person, and we did meet, but I didn't cheat. Yuqing said she and her husband had been separated for years. Maybe her husband had already found someone else. I told her not to overthink it. As I was comforting her, she threw herself into my arms and cried. She was very emotional that day. I couldn't just push her away. That night, I booked her a hotel room and walked her to her room. I knew she wanted me to come in. During dinner, she kept hinting that she regretted missing her chance with me. It was Guanqin's call that jolted me awake, brought me back to my senses. She has a husband. I have a wife. I'm not that kind of man. Later, we'd chat occasionally on WeChat. She said she wanted to stay in this city. There were more opportunities here than in her small hometown. I got her a job. She'd always ask me out to dinner, under the guise of thanking me. The time we slept together, she told me, even if your wife knew you had a mistress on the side, she wouldn't leave you. But I was sure Guanqin would never find out. When Guanqin called, I had just met up with Yuqing. Aside from that one time, all these years, Yuqing and I had feelings for each other, but kept things proper. I refused her idea of becoming my mistress. I admit, Yuqing was the one that got away in my youth. We were very young when we dated. Back when we broke up, it was because her parents thought I had no degree, no future. Back then, none of us could see the future. I never told Yuqing that on the day she got married, I secretly went to sea. So now, I don't want Yuqing to bear the stigma of being a homewrecker. Just like this, we understand each other. It's good to meet up occasionally. Yuqing saw it was Guanqin calling. She paused for a moment. Aren't you going to answer your wife's call? It might be urgent, right? I hadn't told Yuqing about my divorce from Guanqin. I didn't want my decision to interfere with her marriage. Of course, I also hadn't really thought about actually marrying Yuqing. I shook my head. It's fine. Let's eat first. Okay. Yuqing had personally made a few of my favorite home-cooked dishes. She took off the apron from her waist and draped it over the chair. She served me soup and rice. Watching her busy herself, the regret I'd held for so many years suddenly seemed to fade away. When I got home, on the shoe rack by the door were 2 pairs of worn-out cloth shoes. Before I even pushed the door open, I could hear Guanqin's parents loudly berating her. I frowned. I went to the stairwell next door and smoked a cigarette. Guanqin and I had been married for over a decade. Her parents rarely came over. Every time they did, it was non-stop arguing. Guanqin was the middle child. She had an older sister and a younger brother. The middle child, Guanqin, had been treated that way until the year we got married. Her parents didn't think much of me either. It was just because Guanqin wasn't the favorite, and my parents valued Guanqin's hardworking nature. Later, Guanqin helped me start the business. When the business took off, her parents finally looked at me differently. After our son was born, Guanqin's parents started coming over a bit more frequently, but every visit was either to ask for money or to complain and then ask for money. Now that Guanqin and I are divorcing, I don't know what kind of scene they'll make. I threw the cigarette butt on the ground and crushed it with my foot. I took a deep breath. When I entered, Guanqin was washing fruit in the kitchen. Seeing me, her mother shot up from her seat. "Son-in-law, you're back so early." The words "good son-in-law" immediately reminded me of the calls Guanqin made at noon. Guanqin was in the kitchen, her back to me. She seemed stiff all over. I guessed she hadn't mentioned the divorce. I followed up with a question. "Mom, Dad, what brings you here?" That evening, our son barely ate before retreating to his room. Guanqin's parents complained he was a picky eater. and that Guanqing spoiled him. The whole meal left me simmering with anger. Guanqing kept her head down, picking at the rice in her bowl. She didn't touch a single dish the entire time. I couldn't help but scoff. It was laughable, really. Just a few days ago, she was confronting me, and that image was still fresh in my mind. The way she was then, and the woman sitting at the table now, were like two different people. Every time we fought before, I'd say she only had the guts to bully me. Now that we're divorced, that same attitude is still only directed at me. I put down my chopsticks. I stared at Guanqing's parents. Just say what you came to say, Mom and Dad. Why take it out on Xiaoqing and Xiaoyu? Guanqing's head snapped up. Her eyes were filled with refusal, but her parents didn't care. They just blurted it all out, spilling the reason for their visit. Her brother-in-law messed up back home. He got into a fight. The other side is demanding $500,000. Or they'll send him to jail. Guanqing kicked me under the table, just like every time before. She didn't want me involved in her family's affairs. After the divorce, this was the first time she made any physical contact with me. I nodded. Your brother can't keep doing this. We can help him once or twice, but we can't bail him out forever. Maybe a few days inside. We'll teach him a lesson. Later, while Guanqing was showering, her parents kept talking my ear off. I hesitated for a long time, but still didn't tell them about the divorce. After all these years with Guanqing, even if the love is gone, there's still a bond. I'm truly fed up with her unpredictable moods, but I can't deny everything she's done for this family and her parents. Make a scene without a second thought. If they really showed up at my office, I'm the one who'd suffer. I calmed her parents down, right in front of them. I called a friend back home, asked for a favor. When they heard it wouldn't cost $500,000, and he wouldn't go to jail, they finally relaxed. I stayed in the living room. After everyone went to bed, Guanqing came out to find me. She kept her head down. Jiang Yongliang, don't get involved with my brother. We're divorced. You don't have to. I was in a decent mood before this. I'd even forced myself to forget how petty Guanqing was with me the other day, but I didn't expect her to be so ungrateful. I asked her pointedly, then why didn't you tell them? We're divorced. Seeing her parents today, it suddenly clicked. Why Guanqing agreed to divorce but stay in the house. She simply doesn't dare tell her parents. She divorced me, and she can't control them from showing up under the guise of seeing their grandson. In the end, it's Guanqing who can't let go of me. Guanqing returned the money that I transferred to her earlier, the $90,000. She didn't take the last 2 months' payments either. She deliberately waited until our son wasn't around to tell me, consider this $90,000 as me paying you back. And here's the $60,000 for the last 2 months. The remaining $350,000 is in a fixed-term deposit. I'll give it to you when it matures. The other day, when Guanqing's parents called, she was cooking in the kitchen. The call was on speakerphone, so I overheard it. Her brother's issue got resolved, but her parents didn't say how. Right before hanging up, her parents told her several times, just what kind of job could you even find out there? Your real job is taking good care of your husband and child at home. That's what matters. I rarely agree with Guanqing's parents, but this time, it really hit home for me. Before the divorce, Guanqing's moods were always up and down. It was exhausting. Forget about her taking care of me. Just getting her to not suddenly blow up and start a fight with me was an achievement. Actually, after the divorce, she seemed a lot happier overall. Back then, my parents advised us to divorce but not live apart. They told me to either fight for custody of Xiaoyu, or at least make sure he grew up, right under my own nose. They were worried that if Guanqing remarried, our son might take on a new surname, and call someone else Dad. Thinking about it now, how could that ever happen? The money she got from the divorce settlement, she put it all into fixed-term deposits. And that money, she would only ever use it, and definitely will only use it, for our son. If it's for my son, what's there for me to fuss about? Plus, Guanqing doesn't argue with me anymore. I still have everything handed to me. I don't lift a finger. It's actually pretty good. I leaned back on the sofa, turned up the TV, and pretended I didn't hear a thing. Yuqing has been contacting me a lot lately. She's unhappy at work, often gets excluded by her colleagues. I was surprised. Yuqing has high emotional intelligence, and she's good looking too. They're both women in their 30s, but Guanqing's waist is at least twice as thick as Yuqing's. When she first told me that her husband looked down on her, I could hardly believe it. Yuqing teased me, saying, "Isn't it true for all you men? The wife is never as good as the mistress, and the mistress is never as good as the affair." I went to the mall where Yuqing worked. Both Yuqing and I graduated from high school. Later, we agreed to go work in the city together, and we didn't continue our studies. When arranging a job for her, I asked a friend to get her a position as a store manager in the mall. Her performance has always been excellent. Now she's in charge of several stores. She pursed her lips, full of resentment. But in the end, I'm still working for someone else. I understood what Yuqing meant. She wanted to be her own boss. During dinner that night, Yuqing kept pouring me drinks. She was giving me hints. Over the past few years, Yuqing and I have come to understand each other more and more. Although we're not husband and wife, she's always the first to sense my mood and needs. She knows I'm bothered by the fact we're both married. She never brings that up, but this time, she was especially proactive. This was the second time I slept with Yuqing. I admit, Yuqing was different to me. At the very least, she was different from those one-night stands, where nothing meant anything. Yuqing's shop is at the entrance of a bustling street. I paid a price to get this storefront, snatched it away from several other people. Yuqing was very grateful. She planned to open a Korean restaurant, the decor, the style. It was all her own design. When she told me about her future plans, her eyes were shining. Under the blazing sun, she was as excited as a kid. After signing the contract, she sat inside the shop, and suddenly asked me, if I go back and get a divorce, would you marry me? She asked seriously, but I was startled by the question. Through the glass window, I thought I saw Guanqin, like I was possessed. Countless images flashed through my mind, of Guanqin's hysterical, crazy scenes. My first thought was that Guanqin was following me, but I quickly dismissed that idea. Over the years, Guanqin, at most, would just call or video chat, checking up on me. The only time it got really bad was right after our son was born. He suddenly got a fever. She couldn't reach me, so she called an ambulance and went to the hospital herself. After my parents got there, she showed up at my dinner party and made a huge scene. Honestly, that was pretty embarrassing, but it really was my fault. While I was lost in thought, Guanqin's figure had already vanished, like she was never there, and Yuqing looked disappointed and dejected. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pressure you. After that day, Yuqing and I tacitly agreed not to bring up that question again. She'd send me updates on the shop's renovation progress almost every day. She even went to Korea herself to learn the cuisine. While she was in Korea, I felt a sense of relief. To be honest, I was kind of scared. Scared she'd actually go back, get a divorce, and then come find me to get married. Yuqing is different from Guanqin. Yuqing is bold and driven. She should be like she is now, chasing her own dreams. As for Guanqin, I can't deny she's a hard worker. Back when we first started the business, we'd get up early and stay out late to get seafood, then haul it to the market to sell. When I couldn't keep my eyes open and snuck off to sleep in the back, she was always the one minding the stall. But these past few years, she's changed so much. Ever since Yuqing's been gone, Guanqin's hardly ever home either. After dropping our son off at school in the morning, she just doesn't come back. At night, for dinner, she rushes in just half an hour before. I asked our son, who's been picking you up from school lately? Mommy. Our son mumbled without looking up from his homework. I suspect he didn't even hear my question clearly, or Guanqin told him to say that. After dinner, Guanqin was in the kitchen washing dishes. I went in and asked her, what have you been so busy with lately? It was only when I got close that I smelled the strong scent of cooking oil on her. Before she could even answer me, I backed out of the room. Just like I said, Guanqin and Yuqing really are nothing alike. Guanqin was still leaving early and coming back late. Several times, she didn't even make it back. For dinner, she'd call me and tell me to take our son out to eat, or just make something simple. To be honest, I was really angry. Even though we're divorced, I shouldn't question her whereabouts. But now she doesn't even care about our son's needs. Our son must have sensed my mood. Timidly, he tugged on my sleeve. Mommy already talked to me about it. She has her own things to take care of lately, just like Daddy used to. In front of our son, Guanqin and I always acted like a loving couple. All the arguments and cold wars over the years happened behind his back. That was our bottom line, to give our child a complete, happy family. Back then, Guanqin and I agreed that no matter how busy we were, we'd always come home to have dinner with Xiaoyu. I agreed, but later, the arguments became too frequent. I could only escape by using work dinners as an excuse, then explain to our son the next day that Daddy had his own things to take care of. But I'm busy making money. What could she possibly be busy with? Is she looking for another man or something? Guanqin came home late. She smelled like sawdust, paint, and sweat. I frowned, but the anger I felt earlier subsided a bit. Looking like that, who would want her? When she saw me, she froze for a second. She asked me why I was still up. I suddenly felt like I had been caught red-handed. I fumbled for the TV remote. Couldn't sleep, so I'm watching something. The TV turned on. Then I realized how ridiculous I was being. Ridiculous for thinking that someone like Guanqin could find a man. Ridiculous for feeling guilty, just for suspecting her of that. The next morning, I took a good look at what Guanqin was wearing. She seemed a bit thinner, but her clothes were still tacky and outdated. I thought about following her to see what she's been up to lately. But then Yuqing called. Yongliang shop is opening at 10 in the morning. Don't forget to come and show some support. I hit the brakes. The car stopped at the intersection. I had indeed forgotten. Guanqin's car had already turned the corner. Thinking about Guanqin last night, when she came home, I was sure my worries were unnecessary, so I drove straight to Yuqing's new shop. The place was bustling. It was already packed by noon. Quite a few of her friends from her days at the mall had come over. Someone asked about our relationship. I held my glass and took several sips of water, looking down, until Yuqing said, he's a major investor in this place. I felt a little more at ease. The fact that Guanqin and I are divorced, only a few of my close buddies know. Even my secretary doesn't know the details. Likewise, my relationship with Yuqing. I don't want anyone to know about that either, especially since she's still married. No matter who crossed the line first, we should avoid suspicion in front of others. I have a meeting this afternoon. After lunch, I said goodbye to Yuqing and left first. On my way to the parking lot, I actually saw Guanqin. The sun was blazing. She was still wearing the same clothes from this morning, handing out flyers to every passerby. I stopped in my tracks, stunned. First, I mechanically looked back towards Yuqing's shop. My mind raced, wondering what Guanqin was really doing here. Then I quickly walked up to her. What are you doing here? I snatched the flyers from her hand. I gave them a quick glance. It was for a wonton restaurant, opening next Saturday. Guanqin opened her mouth, sweat dripping down her cheek. Her voice was hoarse, handing out flyers. She grabbed the flyers back from me, smoothing out the wrinkles I had made. I rarely get sarcastic with Guanqin. She's fat, she's ugly, She's moody. I've put up with it for years, but this time, I was genuinely furious. I threw her flyer on the ground and dragged her toward the parking lot. A young girl saw this and came running after us, using all her strength to try and pry my hand loose. What's going on? Chinjia. Do you know him? I'm calling the police right now. Ha, calling the police? Guanchin, tell me, do you know me or not? I scoffed and let go of her hand. Guanchin and this young girl lowered their voices, saying something I couldn't make out. Only then did she leave, looking back over her shoulder every few steps. I first took Guanchin to a nearby shopping mall and bought her a new set of clothes before taking her to the company. While the salesperson was picking out clothes for her, I finally noticed that Guanchin had really gotten thin. She had lost a lot of weight. She looked about the same as she did a few years after we got married. Back when we first met, Guanchin was so thin she looked malnourished. Later, when business started doing well, it took me a long time to get her healthy again. After Guanchin changed her clothes, she stood before me with a cold expression. Is there anything else? I was completely mesmerized. That outfit really suits Guanchin. Yuqing tried it on the other day. It didn't look good. It wasn't right for her. Taking Guanchin to the company was a pretty last-minute decision, but it worked out perfectly. The afternoon meeting is crucial. The company's close to sealing a deal. It just needs that final push. The other side's boss Yang values character above all. He even brought up Guanchin during our last few chats. I don't know where he heard it, but he said Guanchin and I started from scratch together. And now we have a happy and harmonious marriage. A picture of marital bliss. He and his wife are the same way. All these years, they've stood by each other, weathering every storm together. Guanchin and boss Yang met briefly, on the way to the company. I explained the stakes to Guanchin. Even though we're divorced, we still have a son together. The money I'm making now is for our son's future too. I said it with total conviction. Guanchin took it to heart. The meeting went smoothly. The contract was signed without a hitch. I had my secretary pick up our son and bring him to the restaurant. Mr. Yang's wife came too, to join us for dinner. During the meal, they looked at our son with deep emotion. We cared too much about money back then. After my wife's miscarriage, she didn't rest much, and just kept working hard with me. That left her with health issues. They don't have children of their own, but they've adopted several abandoned children. Guanchin occasionally responded to Mrs. Yang, mostly about children. Like I said, no matter how bad Guanchin's mood is, it's only directed at me. Our son is a perfect match for her. When we got home that night, our son suddenly said he had something to tell us. He acted like a little adult, and made Guanchin and me sit on the couch. Mom, Dad, I've grown up now, so there's something I want to talk to you about. Hearing him say talk, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. Our son fidgeted with his fingernails, and it took him a while to muster up the courage to speak. Mom, Dad, I know you're divorced. His words hung in the air. I was stunned, but Guanchin remained calm. Our son continued. Actually, a lot of my classmates' parents are separated. You don't have to hide it from me. He said that Guanchin and I are separate individuals, and every individual has the right to pursue their own happiness. That right shouldn't be taken away by anyone, not even by our son, meaning me. As he said all this, my brow furrowed repeatedly. Honestly, I couldn't believe these words were coming from my son. He's only 7 years old. Did you put him up to this? I asked, suppressing my anger, turning my gaze to Guanchin. Guanchin shook her head. Her eyes were brimming with tears. Suddenly, they began to fall, one by one. Our son threw himself into her arms. Mom, don't cry. He's always been closer to Guanchin. Dad, Mom didn't tell me to say that. I asked my teacher about it today myself. He spread his arms in front of Guanchin, shielding his mother. I was okay with the idea of being divorced but still living together. But now, I suddenly realize, I can't accept this kind of divorce anymore, especially after our son actively broke the pretense we've kept up for these past few months. I asked my son, do you want to live with Dad, or do you want to live with Mom? I never thought our son was that clever, but he said, Dad, if Grandpa and Grandma miss me, I'll go stay at their house for a while. I don't want to make things hard for you and Mom. So I didn't agree with his idea. I told him to just focus on school and grow up happy. Mom and I will both be here with you. My son glanced at Guanchin. Guanchin smiled and ruffled his hair. Mom understands. Go to bed now. After our son went back to his room, Guanchin suggested we separate for good. In the eyes of the law, we're already divorced. I'll talk to my parents. You talk to yours. As for Xiaoyu, we should respect her wishes. Only now have I finally calmed down and taken a good, hard look at Guanchin. She's changed so much. When talking about these things, she's calm as still water. At first, I thought Guanchin agreed to divorce but stay living together because she regretted the divorce. Then I thought it was because of her family issues that she was forced to compromise. But now I understand. Guanchin is giving our son a buffer period these past few days. Even though in front of our son, we've been trying our best to act normal, there's still a distance between us. It feels forced. Guanchin has told me countless times that Xiaoyu is very smart. I always brushed it off casually, thinking it was just a mother's bias. Besides, in this day and age where it's all about connections and money, what does being smart even matter? But now I finally know, our son really is smart, so he's been quietly observing everything on his own, and processing it all by himself. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. A few mornings later, Guanqing was taking her son to school. I specifically told her to come home first. I'd be waiting for her at home. I wanted to talk to Guanqing. If, from now on, she wouldn't be so emotionally unstable, and wouldn't argue with me endlessly, maybe we could get back together. We don't have romantic love, but at least we have family love. For our son's sake, we could both take a step back. What's the harm? I didn't wait for Guanqing to return. Instead, I got a call from a friend. Brother Jiang, you and your wife are really done? When I arrived, my friend was watching from a distance. He waved me over. I just came out of Yuqing's shop, and I saw your wife. Yuqing? How does she know Yuqing? I stared at my friend for a long time. You know Yuqing? My friend was taken aback. He forced a laugh. He said he went to the mall before, to buy a gift for his girlfriend, and ran into Yuqing. Later, they added each other on WeChat. He saw me liking Yuqing's social media posts, so he chatted with her a bit more. I tried to calm myself down, and explained, an old high school classmate. I casually looked over at the wonton shop my friend pointed to. I remembered the flyer. It opened Saturday. The store is already renovated. A man was standing on a ladder, seemingly fixing a light bulb. Guanqing was looking up, watching the man with a face full of concern. She held the ladder the whole time. I patted my friend's arm, and said, thanks. Then I rushed into the wonton shop. I never imagined Guanqing would show affection for another man, even simple concern. Guanqing, what are you guys doing? Seeing me, Guanqing frowned. She looked like I wasn't supposed to be there. She walked behind the counter, poured a glass of water, and handed it to the man. Mr. Zhang, you must be tired. Let me make you a bowl of wontons. Probably because I showed up. The man took his leave. No problem. No problem. No need. Just call me if you need anything else. Boss Guan, you go ahead with your business. Guanqing, what do you mean by Boss Guan? You own this place? I blurted out in surprise. I thought Guanqing was just here to help out, to work a job. I never imagined that she owned the shop. Guanqing nodded. She glanced at the time. Let me make you a bowl of wontons, she said, already heading into the kitchen. I stood at the counter, didn't know whether to stay or leave, so I just picked a seat by the window and sat down. The whole place wasn't very big. Compared to Yuqing's shop, it fell short in size, decor, and location. By the time Guanqing brought the wontons over, I'd already looked the whole place over. So this is what you've been busy with lately? I asked her. Guanqing sat down across from me. She gave a quiet hum. The wontons were delicious, just a bit too hot. I asked Guanqing, I waited for you at home for ages. Aren't you curious what I wanted to see you about? I was being deliberately mysterious. I didn't want to tell her directly that I wanted to get back together with her, but I never expected. Guanqing shook her head. She even told me, Jiang Yongliang, we're over. The first time I met Guanqing was back in my hometown, at a wonton shop in town. We were introduced by a matchmaker. My parents asked around the whole village, checking everyone out. They told me Guanqing was a good girl. Back then, Yuqing and I had been broken up for a whole year. After Yuqing left me, she got married not long after. Because of that, I was depressed for a long time. Later on, my parents insisted I go meet her, saying I should get married first, then focus on your career. That day, we just ordered one bowl of wontons. Guanqing said she didn't like wontons, but heard I did, so she went along with my idea, and set the meeting place at a wonton shop. I never liked wontons. Back then, wontons were just cheap, but it wasn't until today that I realized it was Guanqing who liked wontons. When I brought up our first meeting, Guanqing just smiled faintly. It's all in the past. What do you mean, it's all in the past? I slammed my chopsticks on the bowl. Getting a bit worked up, I gave Guanqing an out. What's he still playing hard to get for? Guanqing probably sensed what I was thinking, and finally spoke up. Do you know why I liked you? Because you were the first person who cared about how I was doing at home. I was taken aback. After all this time, I've actually forgotten a lot of the details. If I had to pick a lasting impression, one would be that bowl of wonton soup. The other would be Guanqing herself. Despite being painfully thin, her smile was still radiant. Guanqing was the least favorite in her family. Yuqing and I failed the college entrance exam. We didn't get into university, but Guanqing, she got into a really good university, but her parents forced her to go out and work. The money she earned was squeezed dry by her parents. For someone who's been beaten down for over a decade, to suddenly learn to stand up, it's really hard. But then I met you. That was the happiest time of my life. But tell me, why is it that just when things were finally getting better, they turned bad again? Guanqing held her water glass. Her emotions seemed calm, but her voice trembled slightly. I opened my mouth, wanting to ask her why she said things had gotten worse, but somehow the words wouldn't come out. Guanqing was silent for a moment. Just as she was about to speak, the door to the wonton shop was pushed open from the outside. I instinctively looked over. Guanqing also turned her head. I thought it was that man from earlier, coming back, but I never expected it to be Yuqing, and I certainly didn't expect Yuqing to be smiling as she greeted Guanqing. I had no idea when Yuqing and Guanqing had met. My scalp prickled, especially when Yuqing pulled out the chair right next to me and sat down. I grew tense all over. The end of my marriage with Guanqing could be that I couldn't stand her temper and moods. It could be that the feelings between Guanqing and me had long been worn away by life. Any reason would do, but I absolutely could not accept that it was because a third person got involved, or let people think I was the one who cheated. But that's exactly what Guanqin believed. Yuqing asked Guanqin with a smile, "What were you just talking about, Boss Guan?" Guanqin responded, "One sentence at a time. We talked about my ex-husband's first love. Let me introduce you. This is my ex-husband." In the entire conversation just now, Guanqin never once mentioned Yuqing, let alone the first love. I didn't even know when it was that she found out about Yuqing. Guanqin proactively answered my question. "I forgot to mention, I knew when I was pregnant. Yuqing's photo. I saw it on your phone." I finally remembered when Guanqin changed. It was after Yuqing appeared in my WeChat. But Guanqin never goes through my phone. Guanqin let out a light laugh. "That day, my phone was charging in the bedroom. I suddenly wanted milk tea. You told me to use your phone to order delivery. That day, Yuqing said she wanted to come see me, and I agreed." Guanqin took the bowls and chopsticks to the back kitchen. It suddenly hit me, the meaning of this bowl of wonton. We started with a bowl of wonton back then, and now we end with one too. Yuqing stared at Guanqin's back, then suddenly asked me, "So you've been divorced for a while, but you never told me. Why is that?" If I hadn't coincidentally met your friend, and then coincidentally met Guanqin, coincidence? Was it really a coincidence? My mind suddenly exploded. I stared at Yuqing's face, and suddenly felt terrified. Absolutely terrified. "Yuqing, these past 7 years, have you really never lied to me?" Yuqing was stunned for a moment. "Yes, I did. I lied when I said I just wanted to be friends. I lied when I said I didn't mind anything. Does that count as lying? Just as Yuqing told me she loved me." Guanqin happened to come out. Her gaze seemed empty. I finally realized that all those years, every time she was hysterical, the emotion in her eyes was resentment and disappointment. Back then, I always thought her emotions came out of nowhere. Little did I know, I've been so full of myself for 7 years. Xiaoqin, if I said, I never once thought of betraying our marriage, would you believe me? And I never thought about actually divorcing you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come to talk to you today, right? Xiaoqin didn't believe it. I truly broke down because of her mood swings. Even if, as she said, she suffered for 7 years, hasn't she also transferred that pain onto me? With every argument, every outburst, I was suffering just as much. And Yuqing misunderstood. I don't love her. She's just a regret from my youth. If you don't love me, why were you suffering? If you love Xiaoqin, why did you feel like you were suffering? Yuqing sneered as she questioned me. It wasn't until Xiaoqin stood at the door and opened it. You too, why don't you take this conversation outside? I glanced at Xiaoqin, not wanting to argue with Yuqing in front of her. I hurriedly left. Yuqing followed me out. For the next few days, I didn't go looking for Xiaoqin, and I didn't go home either. Xiaoqin's wonton shop just opened, and business is booming. I didn't want to bother her at a time like this, nor did I want her to come home exhausted after a long day and be saddened by seeing me. Yes, Guanqin must be heartbroken. It never even crossed my mind. So she knew everything all along. She should be crying and making a scene. It's my fault. So I decided to make it up to her. We're both in our 30s. We have a child. I think Guanqin will understand and forgive me. I spent days researching how to save my marriage with Guanqin. I even thought about bringing Guanqin's parents over, but Guanqin really didn't want to see them. Then I wondered if I could get our son to plead my case. But when our son heard about it, he looked completely disapproving. He told me everyone should have their own life. He was right. I didn't argue with him. Instead, I tried a different angle. But mom and dad can still have their own lives even if they're together. Our son's face scrunched up. He waved his hand. But these past few years, mom hasn't been happy at all. Dad, my teacher says, you shouldn't be too selfish. After saying that, my son ran behind me. No matter how busy Guanqin is at her wonton shop, she always comes to pick up our son. When she saw me, she gave a slight nod. Then she took our son's hand and started to leave. I reached out and grabbed her arm. Can't you give me another chance? Guanqin shook her head. She said these 7 years, she gave me countless chances. And she was fighting with herself countless times. She said it's not necessary anymore. How could it not be necessary? Isn't it important to give our son a complete family? Isn't that important? But our son said, mom's happiness is important too. I don't know how Guanqin convinced her parents. When I called them, they chewed me out. I wanted to ask Guanqin about it. On my way to the wonton shop, a man covered in tattoos blocked my path. He grabbed me, giving me no chance to struggle. When I was shoved into Yuqing's shop, Yuqing's face clearly panicked. Husband, the man started yelling almost instantly. Sweetie, you still know I'm your man. You sure know how to run. It took me 7 years to catch you. I was both shocked and scared. All these years as a company CEO, I'm not in shape anymore, especially compared to this man, who's all muscle. So this is your lover. You dare sleep with my woman? You got a death wish? There weren't many customers in the shop. Some were scared off and left in a hurry, but others were filming with their phones. No, I didn't. This is a society governed by law. Your current behavior is something I can sue you for. I muster my courage to confront him. Once the video gets out, it'll definitely affect the company. But the man in front of me was completely unreasonable. Yuqing's shop was transferred. Her husband came to my company and caused a scene countless times. He even used a loudspeaker, saying I slept with his wife. Back when Yuqing and I first reconnected, Yuqing and I complained about her husband more than once. Her husband's family used to be quite wealthy, but he gambled it all away. Out of sympathy and concern, I transferred her tens of thousands of dollars. I thought money could solve the problem. Yuqing's man is making such a scene. Isn't it all about the money? But I never expected him to be so greedy. After divorcing Guanqin, the liquid assets I had left were just over $1 million, and he demanded $1 million right off the bat. I only slept with Yuqing twice, 2 times for $1 million, the man sneered. Fine, don't pay. I'll just come to your office and make a scene every day. Eventually, I had no choice. I hired a lawyer to prevent him from blackmailing me again in the future. We signed an agreement. The day Yuqing left, she sent me a message. She said she was sorry. Sorry. My foot. Even now, I still can't tell. I can't tell if she approached me from the start with that intention to get close to me, or if she was really just caught by her man. 3 days after Yuqing left, I was ambushed and beaten up in the underground garage. And of course, the garage was being renovated those days. The security cameras weren't even connected. I was in the hospital for over half a month. The police asked me who I'd pissed off lately. I gave them the name of Yuqing's man, but the cops said I still needed to show proof. Proof? If I had evidence, why would I go to the police? My body took a real beating, mostly in that department. Eventually, the whole thing just fizzled out. I had to just suck it up and take the loss. I was done too. Any thought of going back to Guanqin to remarry? I don't know if a guy like Yuqing's man, someone who goes back on his word, would ever come back. I don't want him affecting my son. And because of all this, the company's reputation and profits took a nosedive. I was running around like a chicken with its head cut off every day. My parents started blaming me too, saying I got them into this mess. They didn't even dare go back to their hometown. The moment I show my face, people start talking behind my back. By the 3rd year, Yuqing's man still hadn't shown up again. I went to Guanqin's wonton shop. The wonton shop had already opened several branches. Business was booming. During summer break, when I pushed the door open and walked in, my son was sprawled over an empty table in the shop, doing his homework. Guanqin saw me and turned to head into the back kitchen. My son called out, "Dad." I was 6 months pregnant when I saw the chat history between Jian Yongliang and Yuqing. Jian Yongliang said Yuqing was the love he couldn't have in his youth, his first crush, and his lifelong regret. After that day, I quit drinking bubble tea. Later, I couldn't control myself from wanting to check Jian Yongliang's phone. They didn't chat often until Yuqing suggested she wanted to meet Jian Yongliang, and Jian Yongliang agreed. After discovering Jian Yongliang and Yuqing's affair, I panicked and wanted to cry for help. I wanted a divorce, but as soon as I brought up the idea, my parents scolded me. They didn't comfort me. They didn't feel sorry for me. Instead, they blamed me, saying I couldn't even keep a man. They also told me I must have the baby. A child is needed to fight for the assets. I forgot. They started being nice to me these past few years, because Jian Yongliang's business kept growing. They never loved me at all. I was just their trophy, to show off to relatives and neighbors. After the baby was born, I became depressed. Jian Yongliang was right. I was depressed for a full 7 years. My body started gaining weight from the medication. I began to struggle between getting love for myself and for my son. I still chose my son. I tried to be a good mom in front of my son, but the constant emotional setbacks made my state of mind more and more unstable. I could only vent my dissatisfaction with Jian Yongliang by threatening divorce. Maybe if I made a fuss about divorce, he'd tone it down a bit. The year my son was starting elementary school, I planned to get a job to distract myself. I passed by a wonton shop. The aroma was amazing. I walked in without even thinking. To my surprise, the owner was an elderly woman. She made me a bowl of delicious wontons. After that, I went there almost every day. Over time, we got to know each other. She could tell I wasn't doing well. She even started teaching me how to mix the filling and wrap wontons. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I felt like she treated me like her own daughter. She told me she divorced long ago. Back in her day, divorce was a huge deal, because everyone pointed fingers at her. She simply left her hometown and opened this wonton shop here. She said we don't live for others, we live for ourselves. The day I got my divorce papers, I felt a relief I'd never known before. I took them to show her. She hugged me. In that moment, I truly felt loved.